So the whole class is based on both of those videos, which I think are incredible. And if you didn't watch them, it's okay. I'm just going to share their ideas. And I think the first one is just amazing. I don't know if you watched it, the scientist who proved that birds can talk, and they use grammar and they have syntax. And I wept after I watched it and had a couple days to. I sent it to my daughter. She wasn't in bed yet. Summer vacations, probably 11:45. I went in there kind of half crying. Said, "Gotta watch this video, man," because it's first the left brain scientists who took away and forbid our belief that birds could talk. Is the only reason everyone doesn't already know it. And it's so interesting. There's a You've heard me say this a lot lately. Some ideas are so ridiculous that only an educated person could believe them, and it's just so there's so much truth to it. So really, if you think birds can't talk, you only think that because scientists took that away from you and caused something you would already have naturally intuited that they're communicating. You would have had connections with animals, especially before we lived in cities, and kind of forgot all that. And so I wept for lots of reasons. It's great that this guy just here's how he did it. This scientist, I think he was Japanese, Chinese, I can't remember which. He just watched animals while recording their chirps. And he noticed that when there was a snake around, they did this one chirp. And he was able to set up experimentation to prove that that word was for snake. And he was even able to show that these other birds that aren't the same species, they also know when these birds chirp that word, it means snake. So he's found all these different words and syntax, grammar, and language in birds. So, if you read, I don't want to pick too much on Christian theology tonight. I obviously deeply love it, but there's some holes in their deal. Their ship has got some holes. Everyone's got holes. And one of the things is that they adopted that Western intellectual tradition, Western philosophy, and somewhere along the line they became really interested in showing and how we're different than the animals, why we're different and better. And the ability to reason was supposed to be the big one. So this is a problem when you find out birds can talk. And it reminds me of this person I read on the internet that said, I'm not trying to preach vegetarianism here at all. Don't care. Do not care. Just don't hear that. Just hear that what he said. He said, do you think, he asked the question to a forum, do you think chickens have personalities? He said, because I don't think I could eat them if they did. So, and this gets into the other video. So birds have language now. They know a bunch of whales have language, and it just turns out all you had to do was look. All over the animal kingdom, they're talking. They're talking, and it's neat. It's so neat. Hey, I mean, can we just be like children for a minute and think how neat that is? That's so neat. The wonder of it. There's wonder in it. These freaking animals have lives, man. And they're thinking and talking about their lives, and that's incredible. One video said, that's not the thing. The thing that matters is what we can learn about language from them. And I thought, brother, get out of your left brain where you're dead. And get over where it's like the big thing is that they talk. And it's so neat that they talk. And if so you guys, most of you believe in God, so God created animals that talk. That's neat, right? That's neat. I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to say it again because I'm going to follow my notes. But there's this guy, Ian McGilchrist, the other one I sent you, I think very important scholar. I think this guy's very important. I think he's a powerful human being. I really like scholars, but among them are these certain ones, and this guy is like Santa Claus and Dumbledore come together. He's just so, he's so smart. I bought his book, Master and His Emissary. I read some pretty heavy stuff. This book was heavy. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. I need to watch some videos about what he thinks, This guy's incredible, heavyweight intellectual. He's got a medical degree, a psychiatric degree, and a PhD in linguistics. So he's just, really smart, but he's sweet and loving. And if you didn't know it, you'd just, want to hug him. I want him to hug me. I kind of want to put my head on his chest and let him hug me. He just has that, and he's this Christian guy. He's a Christian guy, and he's a serious thinker, and that's what really he's the guy that said everything you know about right and left hemispheres of the brain is absolutely wrong. Please throw it away. But there are differences, and I thought I would tell you about them because they dovetail so perfectly with Christian spirituality. The right kind. There's the two kinds of Christianity on the planet. I've been calling them bean counters. I think that's mean. I got to come up with a better version. But there's the bean counters that just get in their left brain, analyze the text, and argue endlessly about what it means, and end up just in debates endlessly about whether you're doing it right. There's that kind of Christianity, but you know what that is? According to McGilchrist, that's just left brain Christianity. That's just people who are stuck in their left brain interpreting what this all means. And then there's right brain Christianity, which is like, Thomas Keating. Just another, no lightweight intellectually, but just cute. He's so cute. I watched a video, he had something on his tongue, and he's on camera. He's being interviewed, and he just stuck his tongue out and pull it off and kept on talking. You don't do that if you're stuck in yourself. You don't do that if you're trying to look good. You don't do that if you're trying to look spiritual. You don't do that if you're trying to look smart. You do that if you don't give a shit about all that, if you're just done with it. And he just, I've seen other people try that where it's really practiced and they rehearsed that kind of thing, and you just know it's not there. And then there's this, not a lightweight intellectually, heavyweight, definitely has the power dripping off him. You can feel it. And he's goofy. So that's McGilchrist, and so but that's just right brain and left brain Christianity. That's what that is. That's what that is. It's just, that's all it is. And there's right brain and left brain mathematics. This is where Ian McGilchrist crushes all of what we were taught about the right and left brain. The right brain does everything that can be done. It does math, it does language, it does science, it does quantum physics, it does everything, and so does the left brain. They can both do all of that equally well. What he says is different is how they do it. How they do it. And so let's start with this. First, Ian talks about consciousness, and if you guys are following sort of the cutting edge thinking of the day, the hard problem, there's this one problem in quantum physics that's got everyone stumped, why big things don't behave the way small things do and why they seem to be following separate laws. And that's got everyone freaked out. So that's one big problem intellectually on the planet right now. People are trying to solve it. String theory, you've heard of that. It's trying to solve it, but then it's not working. So people are saying maybe it's time to throw that away, and other people are arguing, saying, no, we got to keep it. But the point is, that's a big problem. But there's another bigger problem, and it's called the problem of consciousness. I don't get it, kind of, but I'm just going to, I know enough to get in trouble with all this. But they're just saying that it doesn't make sense that brains should give rise to consciousness. It doesn't make sense at all. And nobody's been able to put forth a believable theory, philosophically or scientifically, for how brains should become conscious. And so there's this thing about consciousness. And there's all these theories, and we don't have it solved. Ian has not solved it. But here's his take. He said either the brain gives rise to consciousness, which no one has been able to argue effectively, or it transmits consciousness, which no one has been able to show, or it accesses consciousness. And so he starts talking about a field of consciousness that pervades the whole universe. And then your brain accesses that field of consciousness. And now when he says that, I already know he's Christian, but it wouldn't matter if he was, because I've listened to other thinkers that are talking this way. It doesn't matter. But don't you hear the mind of Christ? Don't you hear the mind of Christ? Paul says, but we have the mind of Christ. And don't you hear the mystical body of Christ? The mystical body of Christ. The Logos, right? The principle of the Trinity, the second person of the Trinity, the pattern by which all things were created. That is the field of consciousness. And you can access it outside of Christ, as I have in shamanism and all kinds of ways. But the Christian way is that as you develop a relationship with Christ, you start to share his mind, and his mind is everywhere. And it's in everything. It's in everything. And so, if you're not poisoned, and we all are, our culture, Ian's from Britain or England or somewhere, and he said it's way worse in the States. This left brain, just sickness. He said you can talk in ways that are normal in England, and they're completely misunderstood here because people are so in their left brain they don't get it. And he said it's just worse here, and it's beginning to pervert and spread. As usual, when I give a class like this, half the people I want to hear aren't here. It really bugs me. It's almost like I'm getting worked against, not by those people, but by freaking forces, man. It's so weird, man. But another thing Ian said is that, and I've had these same thoughts, so I wanted to share them. AI only has left brain consciousness. It only has it. It has absolutely none of what the right brain is. And we're going to see how important that is as we go on. It's a big, big deal. And he thinks it's just absolutely horrid that we're now turning our intellectual pursuits over to AI, because it's even worse than us and more sick than us. It's fundamentally sick in this way because it's disembodied. It doesn't know what any of the things it's thinking about are. It doesn't know anything. It literally doesn't know what a foot is. It knows the idea of a foot, but it doesn't know what a foot is. It knows the idea of love. It doesn't know what love is. It doesn't know what anything is. And people are asking it advice about those very things. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's insane. And okay, so what is this consciousness? Ian's take is that it's a field, and that it already exists. And this for me is like the second or first thing I learned mystically. Just boom, got struck by a blinding white light, and I knew Jesus after that. But the way I knew him was out everywhere. It was here, but it was also out. I could hear, I could feel him. I could notice Jesus in everything. First thing that happened to me, I now know Jesus. And it's a field and it's everywhere. And you can, if you let yourself, if you become like a child with imagination, like Jesus says, become like a child. If you get out of your adult, rigid, shut down, you were just so stuck, and then you can just kind of close your eyes and think about the moon. And all of a sudden, if you don't just think about it with your left brain, but if you think about it with your right brain, you start to feel the presence of the moon. That's the deal. And that's how you're supposed to read the scriptures, right? And that's how you know Christ. It's not an idea in the left brain. It's a reality in the right brain. It's a thing that really is there. Same with communion. You take communion with your left brain? I don't know. Never noticed anything about it. Take it with your right brain. It's alive. And it's instantly alive. But then so is the grass and so is everything. Then everything's alive. Okay. So he thinks the brain is about accessing consciousness. There's a guy that died. Whatever problems I have with some of what he said, he died, and he when he came back from his big, long, near-death experience, one of the things he said was that the brain slows consciousness down enough to have this limited experience. It's actually a computer that slows things down, and slows them down in specific ways that gives you your character. And from then on, it's like, oh, that's exactly right. Because I've been in cosmic consciousness, and everything is so fast, you have everything all at once. In fact, the Christ consciousness, the mind of Christ, it's like blinding white light, but in that light it's like in its simple form, in love, in this light, this truth. Christ is more truth, Holy Spirit's more love, but it's all the same. It's in this field of energy that's God. We're talking about God now. In that is in a simple form, in its seed form, in its simplicity, and it's just pure everything, infinity, is every idea anyone in the universe will ever have for eternity. Every experience anyone will have forever in eternity is already contained in its infinity in God. And should the universe go on forever with billions of endless planets, endless trajectories, endless storylines, endless romances, dances, plays, music, everything that could ever happen is already contained in its infinity in that one simple light. And our brains slow all that down so we can have our little piece of it. And the more enlightened you get, the more you have access to both at the same time. Both at the same time. But listen, man, I don't just mean like the more you never have any character defects, but also the more you get like a kid. You know, my Kung Fu teacher got so mad at me. I said, man, I really want to understand energy. He said, okay, go sit down. And he was an acupuncturist. There's a certain channel that goes from one side of your nostril up somewhere and then around and back up. He said, think of that. I went down, boom, it's happening. I got this glow running through me. So I go back, hey, he said, what happened? I said, blah, blah, blah. I told him, he said, I don't believe you got so mad because it happened so quick, but I was young. And I just imagined it and fell into it. And it just happened. And it probably took him however many years to get that or something. I never asked again. He got pissed, so I left it alone. But I was just a kid. And that's a thing, man. It's like, yes, more pure. Yes, more holy. All that's true. But also, yes, just let yourself be connected. You are connected. The scriptures say so. You know? Okay, so field of consciousness. And then he says, why is the computer got a left and a right side? And I just want you to hear, this is just his take. I'm not saying this is all proven. He's an evolutionist. He likes evolution. I'm mixed about that, but here's about that being the core reason. I think there's deeper reasons, but what he's saying is this. You had to eat or you died. And for a big, huge part of our evolutionary history, that was really hard. Right? Like, it's so easy right now. It's hard not to eat. Not eating is the hard now. But there was forever in human history, just getting food was it. Full-time job, and you died young because you got worn out doing it. 33, 34, dead. Just had kids at 13 and pumped them out and just tried to keep things going, and it was always precarious to keep things going. That's what it was like. And he said, left and right brain is this. You see food, you must get it immediately. It could be a wild boar. It could be, a vegetable garden that bears also like. There's food, you've got to get it. Left brain sees and must have, must acquire, must get. But right brain says, but what if it's a trap? These are blueberry bushes. Who else like those bears? Have you looked around? Hold on. Think about this. Let's think this through. So that, in a nutshell, is right and left brain. Left brain, instant. Right now, going to control, force, make, and do. And right brain says, whoa. Let's think about that. Let's think about that. Left brain says that's a resource. Have you ever heard people from the business world talk about you as a consumer? Like they literally see you as a consumer, and sometimes you're the product. Like if they can get you watching these views, then you're the product that they sell these other advertisers. You're a product and a consumer. That's left brain. In fact, in studies where the right brain is damaged deeply and the left brain is dominant, if it's severe enough, people lose the ability to see others as real, as persons. They start to see, if there's enough damage in the right brain, the left brain on its own sees people as meat computers. It sees people as robots. And some people who've had their right brain damaged enough really do start thinking everything around them as robots. 24 of the 25 main delusions, like delusion, psychiatric conditions of delusion, 24 of 25 of them are all in the left brain. The left brain is fundamentally deluded. It's mentally ill. It has this one job it's good at, but the right brain's job is to like say, what does it all mean? what is it? What's the bigger picture here? Yeah, that stuff's in the ground, but if we pull it out, it might poison people downstream. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Left brain doesn't care. Does not care. Doesn't care. So, okay. So, Ian says the question of what does the left brain do and what does the right brain do is the wrong question. It's how do they do it? They all do math. They all do science. They all do literature. They all write music. They all write poetry. Left brain writes more music today than right brain, 1,000 to 1. It's not that if we only had the creative types, the right brain types, well, then we'd have more poetry. Not true. We just have good poetry that actually touches people and means something. But left brain's pumping out poetry. It's pumping out music. But it's pumping it out with an agenda. And that agenda, according to Ian, poisons you. It poisons you. So, okay. So, the difference is how they do it. And I just think of the New Testament, okay? They're dealing with this. They're dealing with this. Dead letter of the law versus spirit of the law. Think of this. Dead letter of the law versus spirit of the law. Well, I'm not saying the only factor here is left and right, because there's also whether you've been born of the Spirit and all that stuff. But think about this. Dead letter of the law is just left brain, Christianity. It's just getting stuck in the details. The reason they told me to stay off the law and not preach it too much, get freaking take, especially lately since I had that thing with holiness and now everything is sin to me. And it's like, I know I can't say it in a way that is how I feel it. I know that when I say it, it doesn't come across right. Everything just got really fake to me and really sinful, like 10 times more than normal. But the way I say it, it just comes out all negative, and it's not how I mean it. So I'm just going to quit saying it. But something happened. Dead letter of the law versus spirit of the law is, to some degree, left or right brain. It's left or right brain. Dogmatic Christianity versus a process of an unfolding. What is Christianity? I still can't say. People ask me what I do for a living. I don't know. I really can't answer it. I dread the question. And when it comes, I always get awkward and weird. I don't know what this is yet. It's an experiment. That's right brain thinking. Left brain knows exactly what it is, knew when we started, had a huge agenda, and forced it to happen. And that's two very different kinds of Christianity. There are very different kinds of, but that's different kinds of everything. That's different kinds of exercise. I mean, there's nothing that isn't different kinds of. The right brain likes to say, I don't know yet. Let's see. Let's take in every possible data and let's just see how it unfolds. And even when it starts to form ideas, it says, but let's just see how it unfolds. Left brain likes to know what it knows and say it. And listen to this. In your brain, okay, your brain. Your left brain doesn't ask your right brain what's up. Ever. But the right brain is always checking in with the left. Which one has the maturity? Like, think about that, man. It never asks. It never checks in. It just says, this is how it is. And it tries to override the right brain. Right brain's bigger, has more control, turns out, unless you're polluted in a society like ours. Right brain's always checking in. It's always asking. It's always taking in more data. Wants to. And I see that way with music. Anything I'm a part of, Xingyi, minor, music, very important to me, obviously, because of the band, Christianity, the absolute number one thing. It's never, right brain is never like, here's what it is, here's what we're doing. It can say what it knows up to this point that way. But it's always listening for what else and more and different. That's its job. It's naturally doing that. Your right brain is always doing that. It's not true that there's personality types that don't do that. That's BS. That's all the crap he says to throw away and never believe. It's just whether you're doing it or not, which has a lot to do with humility and a spirit of inquiry and an attitude of openness to God, to be educated. That has a lot to do with spiritual growth. It's not fixed. It's not fixed. It's just whether you do it or you don't do it. Everyone's left brain is mentally ill. Don't be left brain. Don't be that. You might be a mathematician, but the first mathematician that ever blew me out of the water, I said, I'm more of an intuitive type. I don't do math. And she said, for me, math is very intuitive. And I thought, what? But I didn't know what she meant because I had that false dichotomy in my head. Okay. Here's left brain Christianity. Here's right brain Christianity. Left brain theology prescribes how to act. Prescribes. Right brain theology describes what is happening to you. That's right brain. It's like, let's hear the commentary after it's happening. Let's let it happen. So you're Christian, it's happening to you, and a few years later you read theology and go, oh, that is what's happening. Rather than, you're Christian, so read this theology, believe it right now, and go tell everyone it's true. That's left brain Christianity. Opposite. Right brain, think of what is faith in the high level faith in Christianity. What is it? It's a radical openness to God. And what they mean by radical is that it can't be specific or you're limiting it. So you can't say like, God, tell me who to vote for. I mean, you can ask that, but it's like faith doesn't narrow it down to this little thing, right? And that's why all the wisdom around spirituality says, you can ask God for specific answers, but we've seen a lot of people spin out doing that because what they think is coming from God isn't coming from God, but they do hear it. So that kind of thing isn't it. Faith is a radical openness to God with no specifics. That's right brain. That's right brain. Just trying to take in the whole. In our band, we all try to listen. So you're playing, so it's pretty hard. Like, it's like to not be self-centered. So you're playing your role, But the goal in our band is to be listening to them more than yourself. That's the goal. So you hear your instrument, but you're listening to the band as you play. So, I should be really just getting off on the drummer and the guitar and the organ. And I can hear my bass in that mix. But I shouldn't be primarily focused on my bass because that's wrong. That's self-centered. That's small. So see what it is? That's left or right. Bigger brain. The left brain says, look what I'm doing. And the right brain says, yeah, but is it a trap? Are you just in your own trick house? Are you even listening? Listen to the environment. What's going on around you? That's right brain. But it's also cosmic. It's spiritual. That's spiritual. Ian says this, and he means it straight out, and I think he's a modern-day prophetic figure in this way. There's real heat coming off him, and good heat. He says, everything important about understanding life comes from the right brain. Every single thing comes from the right brain. But you got to remember, he doesn't mean right brain poems, left brain math. Right brain does all of it. It does all of it. So does left brain, but they do it differently. Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? Everyone's dying of alcoholism. This guy, Bill Wilson, goes to the Oxford group, a very rigid Christian group, but they're producing spiritual awakenings in people. He does what they tell him to do. It's right out of Jesus. It's inventory and amends, and it's everything Jesus said to be free. Boom! He gets struck by a freaking wind that blows through him. He really felt this great wind. He heard the sound of rushing wind blow through him. He's changed forever. He's like, I got to pass this on to other people. But the problem is, a lot of these people aren't Christian, and they're not going to be Christian, and they're going to die if they don't get it. So he starts thinking, how can I pass this on in a way to everyone that isn't linked to this one way? So, okay, that's innovative. That's right-brained. That's right brain. So he takes the 6 absolutes and turns them into the 12 steps, and he just spits out in some very short period of time the whole text of Alcoholics Anonymous, which changes people's lives profoundly, is filled with power. But he doesn't stop there. He does seance. He's 20 years sober, he's doing LSD. Why? Because he's just seeing if he didn't stick with it. He didn't think it really did the thing, but he did for a minute because he took LSD and had these super conscious experiences. Like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. He tries to convince everyone in AA to make it a part of AA, that you do LSD. And he eventually outgrows that. But he also sat in on seances, got involved in channeling. You name it, he tried it, right? That's right brain. Just open, just being open, just open. So now he's dead. It's always how it goes. He's dead. Not there to be open. Who runs the show now? My opinion, mostly the bean counters. There's a line in the book where he wrote, and he meant this. He said, we realize we know only a little. More will constantly be revealed. This is what he says. But that's not what you hear in the meetings. You know why? Because Ian says every time a new society crashes or things fall apart, the way the human species survives is right brain kicks in, comes up with a whole new way of living and saves the planet. Like when we were down to 15 mating pairs because an asteroid hit the planet and killed everything. And our species was almost extinct. It was done. And shamanism, the shamanic state of mind, which is just pure right brain, the shamanic state of mind figured out how to throw things to get food. They weren't doing that before. They were going to starve to death. So these dudes and women just freaking, it's like, look, we're down to 15. We're down to 30 people on the planet. Our species is done. It is over. And they go into right brain, they come up with a whole new way of doing stuff. And it saves the human species. It saves it. But now if you get a book on how to throw that, it's all fucking left brain people telling you exactly how it's got to be. Man, the only way it can be, just like in Alcoholics Anonymous, thumping the book, preaching the book at you, yelling at you with the book. Preaching left brain thinking while reading right brain text. That's the problem. But it's everything and everywhere. So Ian says every time something really bad happens, right brain takes over, starts something new and amazing. Then in just a few hundred years, it gets dogmatized. And then it's dead. And then it's dead. So this dude, has a farm, and he loves his animals, and every one of them is named. And he likes all of them a lot. And then he gets his right brain damaged. And he forgets all their names, and he can't tell the difference between them, and he sees them as things. Okay. If your left brain gets damaged, they have all kinds of studies. Ian does all these brain studies on this. So the people that get hurt get a sickness in part of their brain that damages it, or a spearhead goes through it, or whatever. He's on it, right? Checking this out, reading all the data. If your left brain gets damaged, and your right brain is hyper dominant, whether you had these ideas before or not, you become an animist. Everything is alive. The sun is alive. Francis of Assisi. The sun is alive. Animals are people. Trees are alive. Francis would go out and preach to animals, and they'd come listen and be his friends. Just your left brain gets damaged, boom, you're free of all that stuff that's killing you, and you're having a great time. I mean, it isn't, you need both, but you understand. It's like instantly, everything matters. See, that's not hippies. That's just what your right brain does. But you all, and me, and all of us were raised in a culture that kills the left brain on purpose. According to some great thinkers, it was by design. Our school systems were designed to kill it. It's deadly. It deadens it. And then now it's become a part of us, and we think, just look at our heroes these days. They're all almost like they're half autistic, which autistic people bring gifts, but all left, just left. And data crunchers, and they can spit out information, and they're towering over others intellectually. It's all left brain fantasies. And it's sick. It's so sick. But it's hard not to let that be your heroes when every show you ever watched promotes this to you. And every song you ever listened to was written by it. And every movie too, it's all that. Left brain makes maps of things. Right brain experiences those things. Here's an example. I'm a huge Deadhead, y'all know. But I've always been uncomfortable at Dead shows because there's this whole group of people that think you're not a Deadhead unless you memorize every epoch of the Dead's trajectory and know all the dates of the shows. And if you don't know, fucking instantly, they're just like, yeah, you're not a Deadhead. And it's like, I'm like that dumb monk that runs across the water. I'm like, sorry, I'm just experiencing blinding white light at the show. I'm sorry I didn't memorize the dates. Sorry. I must not be a Deadhead. It's like that, left and right there. You can do both. Ian did both. McGilchrist, this guy, but you can do both. But you see what I'm saying? The difference. There's a difference. Memorizing every scripture, I wish I could, honestly. That would be great. But that doesn't mean you have it. So left brain thinks about it all, forms ideas about it. Right brain has it. Okay, I told you that part already. So now here's Ian's just, wall destroying, just punch that destroys the castle walls. And allows the towers of evil to be invaded by light. He said, look, it's just this simple. You can look at any school of philosophy. You can look at any form of Christianity. You can look at any form of politics. And you can tell easily whether it's right or left-brained. And if it's left, it's mentally ill. It's that simple. They're either seeing things as a whole instead of just specializing in pieces, because the left just specializes. Look at the endless specialization. Now, you go to a doctor, they don't know anything about anything, but they know that one thing about what they know. But since you come in as a whole person, it's a big problem, because they just know like the foot. It's just weird. It's weird. Endless specialization, not a whole though. Like a big picture. The shaman I studied with, I asked him about this other shaman, and he said, that guy makes me feel like I'm walking backwards. I said, what do you mean? He said, dude, that guy's better than me. He's like, no, he's really good. I said, how do you not feel, I don't know, insecure? He said, well, I think my big picture is a good one. I thought, what? He said, yeah, I just got like an overall view of everything that I think is really helpful to people. Right brain, dude. Right brain, dude. So neat. So neat. Ian says, and he doesn't go like down a political road or down, he's not calling anything out, but he says, just take a look. You can classify. And he said, and I've got all the data for 30 years of studying this. I can tell you right now, if it's left brain, it is sicker. It's manipulative. It's exploitative. It's closed-minded. It's self-righteous. It's right. And he's not political. He said the word once in this whole thing. He's not getting political. But you could see how that kind of sparses out like theological schools within Christianity. St. Francis wore no shoes. They're all wearing shoes. It's like, where's the connection to nature? Where is it? That's where, if you're a student of Francis, you have that. You're a Franciscan if you have that. Not if you are a scholar of Franciscan thinking. That's the difference. I was telling the band, I'm going to learn music theory because I don't think I shouldn't ever. I'm right brain. I want to learn it. But I want to learn it after I know all of it from experience. So I'm just waiting a little longer. It's what happened with Christian theology. I read Christian theology after I already had it. And that just seemed better for me. So like I'm tripping out in there. I know I'm tripping out in real obvious categories that I don't know. I'm very aware of them. Like I'm reinventing the wheel and I'm experiencing things like, oh, that thing, I call it that thing. And I'm like, I know there's a name for that for sure. And I know it's connected to this thing and this thing and this thing. And one day I'm just going to go, oh my God, there's a map for this. But I don't want the map until I've been in all the territory. I don't want it. I want to be in the territory first. I like that approach better. Okay. One more thing. You guys have heard this. I know a lot of you guys have heard this, but you might not recognize it, the language I used to say it, but the right brain, it's like people that are new or within 5 years of being here, they'll say, how am I going to know who I really am? Because you start realizing that like there's just a lot you're not, and it just like stuff just keeps going. And I'm like, what I always say is, if you ask me who I am, I have no idea. I've never bothered to define it. I don't care. It is what it is. That's kind of right brain. Explicit definitions kill right brain consciousness. So like, I don't know how to explain this one. I was a little hard to come up with some examples today. I wish that wasn't the case, but have you ever been around, has this ever happened to you? You're around something that's sacred to you, and somebody talks about it like it's just nothing. Oh, that's that. Oh yeah, I know what that. I know. contemplative prayer is. That's and they just say it in this really weird left brain way. And do you ever feel like how it just kind of just hurts your heart a little? It's not that they've done anything wrong, but it's just like, oh, this sacred thing in there. Like if I told someone I'm in a jam band, I wouldn't even tell them because they might go, yeah, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they know all about it. And then I feel like it's getting trampled by that explicit, oh, that's this. That's what this is. It's like, man, I've been doing this band for like 9 years now. I don't know what it is. How can you just so casually say what it is? And the reason I react like that is because left brain explicit definitions, they kill right brain consciousness. Right brain thrives in this like, nah, I don't know. That's a tree, but like, is it alive? Is it thinking? Is it feeling? There's this mystery in it. But the left brain just says, no, that's the seed thing, and it tells you all about it. And it's like, fuck, dude, if that's all it is, I might as well shoot myself in the head. Because all meaning and wonder just got taken from me. The whole universe is now empty, thanks. And you know, the first time I heard it was an atheist. It was Dawkins or Sam Harris, I can't remember which one. And it was Dawkins. He said, we know how every single thing in this universe happened, all the way back to the Big Bang, and none of it requires God. And I just remember going, like, I thought, if I haven't seen Jesus, if I haven't seen people work freaking miracles, that would have killed me spiritually, would have killed me dead. Now that turned out to be an absurd, idiotic, ridiculously irresponsible philosophical statement that he's been destroyed over later, but I didn't know that. And I thought, how many people were murdered by that? By the same people that you say, man, I really feel a connection with my dog, and they go, oh, you need to be careful with that. You can't interpret dogs as actually connecting with you. You don't know that. Those guys kill it too, and they kill it dead. They kill it. Then later, another scientist comes along and says, oh, by the way, animals really do think. And you're like, oh, do you know the damage? Have you apologized for the damage that's been done? And Ian says straight up, crisis of meaning is what's going on here on this planet. Why is the Western civilization failing? It's left brain dominant. And it will fail for sure because it's meaningless. There's just no meaning in it. And they said, what do you do? And he said, you got to recognize what you've lost, and you've got to get it back, and you've got to insist that you get it back. Can't even read my writing. It's like, I know someone that's a numerologist, and he's a left brain numerologist in some ways. And so what that means is when he sits with you, all he sees is your numbers, and that's it forever. If you know him for 10, 15, 20 years, whatever you tell him, it's these numbers. And it's like you could watch him taking you down a road that you know is not it, but it's like, these are the numbers. I know what I know, left brain. See, left brain does numerology too. It does songs. Right brain does numerology too, but I'm just saying. Right brain listens to the left. Left brain doesn't listen to right brain. Left brain, I have it figured out. Right brain, I'm discovering what it is as it unfolds. Like Daniel said one time that what I'm doing is very different than Christianity is, normal Christianity. The wave of relief I felt because I didn't know that. I wasn't sure. And I felt like one time I had this profound experience with Jesus where he gave me a choice to be a manager or a designer. And I wasn't, and he said the manager is, he said it'd be a big deal to be a part of any of it, he said. And then he said, the designer is 3 times higher and harder, but it will open if you ask. And until Daniel said that, I was like not sure which one I chose, and I just like got some gray hair over it, and I like, God, I hope I didn't just be a designer or a manager. I hope I didn't, because I don't want to be a bum, and I'm a bum, and what if I'm just lazy and it's hard, and I don't want to be a crybaby, But I didn't know, and when he said, I thought, okay, that's probably true, and I felt a little better since then about things. I've spent less time saying, God, please don't let me choose manager. Like, just please don't let me, please, I hope I'm not a manager, I want the 3 times higher and harder, but I'm a lazy bum, so please don't let me ruin it, But it's right brain is not defining it. I don't know what it is. We're discovering what it is. There's a lyric we wrote in Blarney Town. You don't know what you got till the whole thing's through. And I think about that as like, maybe on the other side, It's like, oh, that's what all that was. Okay, but up until then, I don't know. Sailing winds. Driven by no war. Don't know where you're coming or going. Jesus says the wind blows where it wishes, and you can hear the sound of it, but cannot tell where it comes from or where it goes. So too is everyone born of the Spirit. And that is way bigger than right brain, left brain, but man, that is right brain versus left brain. It is. Left brain knows exactly where it's going, exactly what it's doing, and that's why it's bored to freaking tears. Right brain is not an adventure. Jerry Garcia, the Grateful Dead guy, said, people come to our shows because it's one of the last places in America where you can have an adventure, where you don't know what's going to happen. So freaking cool. What a weird thing to say, and so neat, and I would have never said I've been there and experienced it, and in 1,000 years I wouldn't have described it that well. Yeah, an adventure. No, I just wrote this, but I already said it. You can't say you're left brain or right brain. Don't say that. Become right-brained. Right brain does math. Right brain organizes. Right brain manages. It does everything left brain does. It does it better. It does it better. And I've had all those illusions too about right brain and left brain. I was taught all that stuff and had it in my head the wrong way too. So it's like trying to get it back. Like, oh yeah, okay. Right brain does every task. Left brain does every task. They do it differently. Left brain takes over, Ian says, in a good way for people that are healthy even. He said it's like if you've done something 1,000 times, like just wash the dish, left brain just now can do that, and it can do it without thinking about it. And we use that for driving. You wouldn't want to relearn to drive every day. There's a lot of tasks where it's really useful. So he's not saying left brain is bad. It's useful. But for everything new, for everything meaningful, for everything insightful, for everything that has to do with connecting with anything, right brain. Right brain. And he said, and even for a new discovery that the left brain will later take over, the right brain comes up with it. And this guy's cutting edge. I mean, you got to check him out. He's so neat, just such a powerhouse. I think Dumbledore and somebody, Santa Claus. Let's see if there's any important, probably enough. Oh, just another scripture from Jesus. Not from Jesus, but from the scriptures. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this and that. If the Lord wills. Not tomorrow we'll go to this city and we'll do these things. Not that. But instead you ought to say, if the Lord wills it. And it's not, so then left brain would say, then I'll just say those words and then I'm doing it right. Did you say that? Did you remember to say that? Oh, that's not it. The spirit of it. Right? You don't have to say the words. It's not magic spells. But that's what the bean counters would do. Did you say that? you say that for real, love? Did you say those words? Oh, not it. And just point out, this is all apophaticism. This is like the core principle of Christian mysticism, apophaticism. I don't know the way. And it's only in not knowing that it can come. Only in not knowing. And needing the map all the time, instead of living by the Spirit, kills the Spirit. It kills it. That's all.